I was watching it. Yeah, it says we are live. So what's up, everybody? This is going to be the watch party for Karate Kid number 4, even though it's called The Next Karate Kid, but that sounds stupid for a title name, so I'm just going to call it Karate Kid 4. And don't worry, everybody. We're just going to watch some of it. We're not going to watch the whole thing. I honestly just kind of want to do this for like a half hour or something, like an hour maybe tops. But like I didn't even finish the movie. I just didn't really care. My screen, my phone just gave me a notification that I'm live. Really? Like when I'm logged in, it's like, hey, the Rookie Critic's live. I'm like, yeah, no shit, I'm doing it now.
At least someone got a notification.
Yeah, somebody. Like, I'm not even tweeting this out to Twitter or nothing. I'm just going live here. I don't even care. Like, I don't care that much at all. It's just like, yeah. Oh, it gave me a notification because I'm not signed in on my phone. Okay, that's why. That makes sense. I was like, why would it be doing that? Yeah, we're waiting on Tom Connors to join us, and I don't even know if I'll press play on the movie. We might just talk about it for a bit. I don't know. Maybe I should change the title after this because it's definitely not gonna. I'm not gonna watch the whole thing. Hey, what's up, Tommy?
Oh, there he is.
How's it going?
What's up, dude? Yeah, I couldn't finish the movie. I got to the dance part, and I'm just kind of like, I think I'm done. Like I was trying to kind of care by this point, but I'm like, I mean, I don't really care what happens now at the end. Yeah.
So you didn't even see the monks come to the city?
That's where I was pretty much at. Like the monks are playing, they're like bowling. Yeah, I guess that's bowling. I guess that's fine. I don't know. It's just like,
so you missed the final fight?
Yeah, I didn't care at all. I don't care who wins. I don't care what happens with that fight. I just didn't really care. They had to get me in the beginning, and they didn't. Like at least with Karate Kid. See, I was more skeptical with the first Karate Kid. I was like, I'm probably not going to like this. I'm like, because I'm like, oh, it's so hyped. How am I going to like this? And they did pretty much hook me. They made him seem like a relatable enough type of story and kid and whatnot, and doing some stuff, and it just seemed to flow nice. And then they're at the beach, and things are getting going. It just had a good flow. And then this was just like, yeah, okay, Grandma is here, and okay, given the whole backstory in one argument, okay, my parents are dead. Stop calling me this, Ma or Grandma, and then runs away. I'm like, okay, and Miyagi's just there being Miyagi, Julie-san. that was kind of funny how he calls her Julie-san. But now is like there's a few moments that I liked, like when they released the eagle or the falcon or whatever. I was like, yeah, that was nice moment. You had to believe in her so that she can fly. It's like, okay, that's a good point. That's pretty much the only thing that I saw value in it. Other than that, I'm just kind of like, yeah, we're just kind of going through some motions that are obvious now. Like, it feels like this would be a fourth movie. Like, just, right. Hey, we already did the main story. Now we got this. Look, you guys like it? No?
Yeah, just Han Solo'd it. Yeah, soloed it, not Han Solo. Sorry.
This is definitely a cash-in, but not as bad as the remake, if you ask me. But
I give the remake more credit because that almost the way it plays, like that feels like that would be more of a continuation type of story. Like it could have even.
I have no respect whatsoever for the. I don't condone it. I don't respect it. To me, it shouldn't exist.
See, when we do that watch party someday, which we don't actually have to do that anytime soon. I want to move on to Rambo by now, so I can start doing that. But we'll do a Karate Kid remake watch party someday in the future. That'll be a good conversation because I found things in it that are pretty good, but I don't love it either. But it's all right. It's all right. Better than this one, definitely. If we're going to compare some Karate Kid films, now I would definitely.
This one trumps the other one in my opinion because it has Pat Morita in it. Period. That's all. That wins hands down right there. And Jackie Chan is the only good part of the remake, and that's not saying much in my opinion. So.
Yeah, I completely blocked out the existence of that movie. I didn't go see it. I see it as having existed in an alternate universe, so I never traveled to that universe.
So yeah, I've never watched
Dragon Ball rules. Dragon Ball rules. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, have you guys started the movie yet or not? Or
no, I was actually debating because I actually don't kind of feel like watching it again. Like maybe I'll change. I don't know. Maybe we'll just talk about it for a bit and then call it good. I don't know because I don't have much commentary in mind. I was actually kind of preoccupied while watching it. Kind of, I'm just like, yeah, I'm watching it, I'm getting it, but I'm not caring. I don't know if I want to watch it again.
I see.
Like it's just that kind of a thing. I was really hoping that I'd get my expectations subverted, where like everyone says, "Oh, it's really not that good." Then I'd go, well, maybe my perspective will change minds. And no, it's not. Didn't work out that way. Not at all. I'm not even tweeting the stream out because I don't want people to know. It's like, we're talking about it here. God, this isn't gonna like this. This better not have more than 30 views because it's not gonna be as worth it.
Well, it's not our fault. I mean, we're nice, happy people.
Oh
it's
no,
just the movie that sucks.
Oh no, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like if they're hoping that we'd be commentating on the thing, like we could, but like I don't know.
Maybe I don't have as much issue with it is because I went into this thing with such low expectations back in '94 that
it could be. See, that's when I was born. I'm like, okay, this could have been.
To be clear, I'm sure I didn't see it in theater. I'm sure I waited for video, and even
I believe you. I
didn't bother. I didn't bother at all, and I was probably one of the target people, being a young woman. But I had no desire at all to see it, and I didn't. Not in the theater at all.
Yeah, when it's like it could just be that like today, like I got other things that I'd rather do than just watch this twice.
I mean, if I would have seen it in the theater, I may not have liked it as much, or I wouldn't have been as forgiving, I guess is a better way to put it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, because you'd have spent the more money on it, and
right. And let's face it, this is straight to video caliber, despite some of the stars it has in it. But
yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right.
Yeah, I always think about this movie that it was what put Hilary Swank into the forefront and launched her career. So it was a good thing for her.
Speaking of that, what else is she in?
She won an Oscar for $1 Million Baby.
And Boys Don't Cry.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, no, I've not seen those, so I'm like, am I familiar with her even? Okay.
Yeah, it was not long after this she did Boys Don't Cry, and that really pushed her to the...
Was she the teacher in, oh God, what is that one called? Freedom Riders?
I think so.
That's somebody else.
Or maybe not. She's been in a lot of stuff. It's not like she hasn't, but I mean, she doesn't do as many movies as most actresses did, but like she's one of those, like every time she turned around and do something, it was always getting praised. Let me look at her filmography because I know she's done quite a bit more than what we mentioned.
Yeah,
it makes sense. Okay, so I guess we should still talk about the film, I guess, a little bit. So I was going to call them the Gay Squad when they first arrived, but I guess that's
spoilers. They get their ass kicked.
The Marine Patrol, the Marine Hall Monitors. What are they? What the fuck are they? What?
They do not exist in schools. I can tell you that. That's a myth.
We do not exist in reality, do we?
Tom, I want your take on them, because when they showed the scene, they showed her like walk off screen, and then they like have the camera like on the stairs or something, and it's like from a weird angle. So you see their feet walking up, and then their jeans, and then their shirts, and there's like 5 of them, and I'm like, okay, and then they're like all like with the smiles and with their hair, and they're just all looking around, and I'm like, oh, it's gay pride, okay, or something. Just like, and they're just like, hey, what you doing, huh? And I'm gonna beat you up, rapey. It's like grabs her, and it's like, what? I don't know.
I can imagine that the thought process behind this was initially the original script was probably a completely different kid. I don't even know if they had planned on doing it as a girl. But chances are he was dealing with he or she was dealing with bullies. And then my guess is when they decided to go the girl route, they're like, well, how are we going to have a bunch of guys beating up on a girl? So
because he wants to date her.
One wants to, but then make him like this hall monitor kind of. And it's weird because it's actually kind of ahead of its time, because that kind of thing back then was like unheard of. But look at all these, like, and not to bring it up, but like Antifa and all these other like pro bro groups, like South Park was making fun of.
Yeah,
the PC Bros.
Yeah, the PC Bros. Yeah, Pussy Crushers. Yeah, you know.
So I'm thinking that's kind of, I mean, like I said, a little bit of ahead of its time, but then it was like, well, what if we make up this little team of these guys who are ran by this military instructor, and they're just a bunch of jerks. And I think they were just trying not to do the same bullies again. And at that time it was stupid, but now it's kind of coming around to where that's a possibility. You could see a group of guys in a school doing that now.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I can see that now in modern day. And honestly, that didn't look like a 90s school in my opinion, but I don't know. I was born in 94, so maybe I don't know, but I mean, it looked really weird. I'm like, that does not look like the same time.
It may have, I mean, in the original script, it could have even been Cobra Kai again, and they just couldn't get everybody back. Or like I said, like they turned around, and I know very little about this movie because they've done like the least amount of like press on it as far as like any making of or, you know, anything. I don't even really remember much for interviews at the time.
No commentary.
Oh, hell, there's nothing on the DVD or Blu-ray.
Okay, that makes a lot more... hearing what you're saying, though, it makes a lot more sense. Like, they could have had a completely different script in mind.
I'm thinking so.
Because all these ducks in a row, but then just the ducks got all out of place and messed up, and they're like, okay, shit, we already filmed some things, so what can we do to cover it up? Okay,
well, I don't even know if they had anything filmed, per se, but I'm sure they had pursued Ralph Macchio for years. And I'm sure that, you know, Teresa probably knows this too. He just didn't want to do it anymore. It's not that he had like no career or anything, or like he was begging to make another Karate Kid movie. They were begging him.
Yeah, she was talking about that he didn't like, he maybe didn't want to just be known as the Karate Kid and that's it. Like, I already did three of them. I already did 3 of them, and those are good enough. Like, you know.
Because even after the Karate Kids 3, he went on to do like My Cousin Vinny, which was a huge hit. And then he did some smaller acting parts, or not smaller acting parts, but smaller movies. But he was getting a lot of praise for his acting and stuff. Because a lot of people forget he got started in Broadway, and well, I don't know if he was on Broadway, but he got started in like actual like, you know, acting in plays and stuff. And then he got cast in the Outsiders. It might have even been because he was in the play. Do you know that, Teresa, or not? Or
as far as the Outsiders play, from what I understand, I'm not sure how he got into that, but I do know that he's even very recently been doing theater.
Oh yeah,
and Broadway in the. I don't know if he's been on Broadway, but let me double check.
Yeah, I think that might have even how he got into acting. He might have been in the original Outsiders play, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But regardless, he was like, you know, I know he was turning this down left and right. So it's like, they finally were just like, let's do something else. And they got Hilary Swank in there, I'm betting. And that's probably the first time they're like, well, let's try a girl. Yeah.
Well, and by then, I assume that like he was probably like in his mid-20s by then.
Oh, he was in his 30s by then.
Like,
he was already
like, you want to be in Karate Kid 4? Like,
it was like we were pointing out in the third movie that he was actually around the same age as the antagonist in the movie. So.
Yeah, because he was 20 in the original Karate Kid, and then so this would have been a good 10 years later. So he was 34 years old. He was.
Yeah, I imagine that he didn't just like, dude, why bother? I'm not the kid, and like, stop. But I mean, I could see that if they wanted him to be in it, like if they paid him however much just to be a cameo for 5 minutes. They could have made something there, maybe like when Miyagi in the movie was like, "Hey, we're gonna go see my old friend." I assumed he's talking about Daniel-san, but no, there's the monks, which was fine. But you know, it's like, okay, that could have been, you know, more interesting to see Dano go, he got another one, cool.
Yeah. They probably had a cameo set up for him, and he probably turned it down. I bet.
I agree with you. I bet he would. He's probably like, "I'm not appearing in that movie. No, thank you."
Well, even here, I'm looking at the thing. It said at the time he was 33 years old. And he told a reporter that he was not interested in becoming the Sylvester Stallone of Karate Kid movies.
That's awesome.
Man. He's been on Dancing with the Stars. That's very important.
Yeah, Sylvester Stallone has? No,
Ralph Macchio has.
But that'd be fun.
Sylvester Stallone.
But that kind of began his little resurgence there, so you can't really knock him for that.
Oh no, I mean, go for it. Hey, if you can dance. I'm not much of a dancer, so I appreciate the talent.
Right. And this is also the first one that wasn't written by Robert Mark Kamen, who wrote the first 3 films. That's another thing to note.
That's a good point. Well, I like your point about how they just decided, let's just make it a girl.
I think like, that's about how much thought went into it.
There's things in this that are just where he's like, too much makeup and cabinet. It's like, what? No, there isn't. Just got a pointless scene for like 2 minutes. And I was like, okay, that's done. And then he's like, you babysit now. Okay. And then she babysits. And then then he gets her a dress. And she's like, oh, thanks. Wow. And then it's just like what is this movie?
Well, it's kind of the whole grandfather/father she never had kind of thing. And then basically the whole movie is predicated around one scene they can have in every trailer, and that was where Miyagi goes, boys are so much more easier, however he says it.
Yeah. I could see the
more simple.
Mr. Miyagi was used to training boys, but now he trains a girl. Let's see how he does this. Let's find out. A South Park type of trailer.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't really miss much at the end. She comes back. She faces off against all the guys. Miyagi kicks the main guy's ass in a very badly choreographed fight.
Wait, against Jack Nicholson?
Jack Napier or whatever. Which one ever? What's it? No, not Napier. It's Ironside. Michael Ironside. Yeah.
Okay. No, I thought you meant the head bad guy because Jack Nicholson's in this. That would have been kind of cool to see a Jack Nicholson
no.
and how they're both old, and that'd be a horrible fight to watch. No stuntmen or something like.
No, yeah, they give the two big baddies the fight, or the big bad guy of the fight with Miyagi, and it's very badly choreographed. You can tell it's either a stuntman or they gave him really easy moves so he could do them himself.
Yeah, you see, I felt no point to watch the ending for that. I'm just like,
you're not really missing a ton.
Yeah, I'm like, what am I really losing here? Am I gaining anything? No. And the end of the Karate Kid, I didn't care about the ending with it, but it was like a good, it's over now. The arc, the things, okay, it's done. Like a good wrap up of the story. There, boom, okay. With
the better ending would have been not so much her even getting into a fight.
But that's kind of what I thought it was going toward, that there wasn't going to be a fight in the end. But I was like, no.
It shouldn't have. It would have probably made the movie better if she'd have learned to walk away.
No, but you said this was 1994, though. This is like prime ninja fighting time, I imagine.
Yes.
I actually think Three Ninjas was released around that
Three Ninjas,
time.
Ninja Turtles were hot. Jackie Chan was hot.
You can't not have a final fight. You have to have a fight.
Yeah, I know. But it could have went a different direction. The ending could have the other ending they have is she lets or does that happen earlier? Where she lets the bird go?
That was earlier. See, that was the one moment I liked.
They should have left that for the ending. That should have been the ending.
See, I liked that where he was like, you got to let the bird go. She's like, no, it can't fly. He's like, you got to make it believe it can. Who knows? Who's to say?
The bird was the best part of this movie. I love that bird. It's named Angel. It's so long. Yeah, that was great. So just watch it for the bird and all that stuff, and skip the rest of the entire movie.
Yeah, I wish I would have known that ahead of time. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's the unique part about that's the unique part about her character, though. And that's kind of what I like about it is they do give her things that aren't to where she's not just another Daniel. Yeah, and regardless of how the movie turned out, it still was, at least they were trying. You got to give them credit for trying not to retread the same old tropes, because she already knows karate. It's just she needs to learn how to control her anger, and that's a little bit like Daniel, but I mean she's very skilled compared to Daniel, because she basically has been trained by her grandfather or whatever and stuff like that.
I feel like they could have been better at making her the main character, with anger. She should have been the bully. She should have been the total bad egg.
That's not a bad idea. They should have went that route. Yeah, you're right. She should have been the Johnny. She should have been the character picking on the lesser, the weaker girls in school or something like that. And Miyagi sees this and shapes her up. That probably would have been a better movie.
Sees her yelling at her grandma, yelling, being mean to the neighbor kids or something, being a bully in school. And then, he, for whatever way they tie them to be together or something, teaches her. Maybe she's like, I can kick your ass, old man. And then she tries and just, no, it doesn't work. And it's like, God damn, I got to learn this. Then becomes
that would have been a funny scene to have Miyagi just beat her ass with one hand and not even really put in an effort.
That's what I'm saying. It's it could have been corny, stupid, that they end up training together or something, having their go through the motions. But that'd be kind of funny to see a badass, I can kick anyone's ass chick go to try to do the wax on, wax off thing, just to see her try to.
Yeah, that would have been. I agree.
A Mean Girls kind of thing. That would have been. That would have been great. I mean, because this was just a few years after Heathers came out. There was a whole bunch of Mean Girls movies. before the next wave of Mean Girls were movies. That I would have gone to see it if it had been like that.
Well,
Seen it in the movie theater.
I think that would have just been more interesting because Danielson, like, did what he was told. And, this type of chick would definitely not do that. But if she wants to learn, then, they'd have to make some type of situation where this bad egg chick, Mean Girls, would somehow learn, which could be corny, but 90s is made for corny. So this would have fit right in there perfectly.
Well, you wouldn't even have had to have altered the script that much, really. And a lot of the same things could have happened because that's kind of what he's doing, is tempering her anger. And that's one of the reasons why I actually enjoy when she goes to the monastery, because it is so much different than the other movies. And that's really what it is all about, is her finding her center and finding her, and not being so aggressive with everything. Just like when they all get upset with her for killing that bug in that one scene.
Well, she almost killed the bug.
I thought she killed it. I can't remember now.
She got her shoe out, and the guy.
Oh, they stopped her. That's right. Yeah.
And then they looked at her with disdain, like, "Oh, you." Fuck.
Yeah. See, now that's the kind of thing where I think you're right. That would have fit in perfectly with a lot of that kind of stuff, and you could have kept some of the better stuff that's in the movie still, and it would have been a little bit different, even more so than what we got. Because you're right. I would have loved to see that dichotomy flipped around on itself and have Miyagi, teaching the bully not to be such a bully. Yeah.
Well, and even the bully could have that bird still. Like, bullies can still care about animals, certain things. They care about certain things. So that's the one thing that they care about. And,
and you could have used it as a metaphor. Like he could have been like, "Oh, the bird's wing's broken because Julie broken. We fixed Julie. We fixed bird's wing."
Oh my gosh, Tom, that would have been. That would have been amazing. Oh my gosh, we're rewriting it right now. That is fantastic.
Right?
Like we could have kept the same type of elements, just change a few things, and this could have been a really good movie. I don't know if it'd be better or worse than the others, but it would be, at least if it was going to be the fourth out of the four, it wouldn't be a low. It would be, like a 6 or 7, maybe. Who knows? Like,
oh
yeah, would have been a little better.
Yeah, it could have definitely used some punching up and a rewrite and. Doesn't need to exist. No, that's the bottom line.
For people in the chat, we were going to do a full-on watch party, which I'll change the title of this like when it's done. But it's like I don't feel like watching it again. Like I tried to watch it once today, and like I got through to like there's like 20 minutes left. I didn't finish out, and I'm like there's just other things I'd rather do. So I feel like we can just talk about it for a little bit and call it good.
Yeah. We've lost the will. We've lost the will to watch. We've made on this.
Yeah, well, the other 3 I was expecting to not like them, and then by the third one everyone was like, "Oh, that's where it goes really bad." Like it was what a lot of people were telling me, and I'm like, "No, I actually really liked it." And I'm like, "Okay, so number 4 must be good because everyone else hates it." And I'm like, no, I am wrong here. There's sometimes that happens where I'm like, I can find the positives and have the conversation and convince people that they're not as bad, but this is not one of them.
I'll stick up for the third film, but it's hard to stick up for Next Kryptonian. But I will say it's getting a 4.4 on IMDb, which isn't too bad, actually. I mean, that's low, but that's, I've seen worse ratings.
Well, Rookie, Geoff, you have found something positive. You've been balanced. You really found the part with the bird. Everyone loves the bird, and what that all meant. So there's good stuff. At least one good thing.
One good thing, true. But I wish that when he had her babysit, you could have done things there too. Like, so many scenes that just kind of it looked like it went through. What do you do in a 90s movie? You have a montage where she's babysitting or something and whatever. It's just like
that's kind of where the movie shows its sexism.
Yeah,
and I will admit that because a lot of the stuff that Miyagi has her do compared to what he had Daniel do are definitely considered more feminine, activities.
Well, actually would have been okay too if he gave her more mental tasks, but she doesn't really do that either.
No, it's just the babysitting thing to me was kind of sexist. I mean, I get where it was going, but it was like, yeah, I think this is where you kind of went too far on that other side. Like you're making it too obvious.
Like I'm saying, you could have even had the Karate Kid be a nerdy girl who has never fought in her life, and is used to beakers and test tubes and math and all that stuff and English and all this, and somehow incorporate that into karate. And that would have been more interesting to watch.
Maybe
you have the beaker and you need to pour 1 ounce, without measuring cup.
I think that would have been too much like the first movie, though.
You have the bartender that needs to do it without the jiggers or something.
Oh my gosh.
That would be too much, I think, like the first movie, though. I think I like your idea, Rookie, of I think that's really all the movie would have needed to fix it. would have been made her the bully.
Yeah.
And you could have kept a lot of what's in there that's good, like I said, and got rid of all the other crap. And it probably would have fixed the entire film, actually.
So if you were to rate it now, what is it? And then if you had that switch, the plot change, what do you think it would be? How do you think it would improve? Like I'd rate this I didn't even finish the movie. Like I can't really give it a full rating because I haven't finished the movie. But just from what I watched, I give it I don't care out of 10. Nobody needs to know how I feel about it because it doesn't matter.
I'd probably give it about a 5 or 6 or not even a 6, definitely a 5. It's a 5 at the most.
I'd say it's below average. I feel like even average ones do more to get you invested sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm giving it a lot more credit just because of Pat Morita, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I'm with the rookie, with Geoff. I give it a John Boyega out of 10.
Yeah, sounds about right. Could have been good, but they didn't do anything with it, so it failed.
I mean, I will agree with you, Rookie. There are elements of the remake that are better than this movie, but the fact that movie shouldn't even exist, yeah. Not that this one has much of a right to exist, but at least it has Pat Morita in it.
True. Continuing Trek says I should watch Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan instead.
Oh.
Is that really bad or good or something?
No, it's a good movie.
Jeannie Macaroni, you've not seen The Wrath of Khan.
Jamie Macaroni? What?
Oh, Jeannie Macaroni. It's so I don't curse. Okay.
Okay. Fiddlesticks or something.
You've not seen The Wrath of Khan.
I haven't seen any Star Trek.
The Wrath of Khan is a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece. I'm just gonna.
I know it's the one where they go, "Cat!"
Yes, it's fantastic from beginning to end.
What's Genesis? You gotta give me time.
Yes. The needs of the many outweigh the needs.
Ladies and gentlemen, William Shatner has arrived to join us on the stream. How's it going?
Oh,
I got a burning sensation between my toes.
Could be some toe fungus if that's your problem.
Probably athlete's foot. I play way too much tennis.
I'm trying to come up with a joke here, but I can't. I don't know anything about that. No, actually, I lied. I think I saw some of the J.J. Abrams Star Trek because it was on Netflix, and I got bored. I got bored 20 minutes into that too, and I stopped watching. So,
you've got to do it right. You've got to do it right.
If you got bored during J.J. Trek, really? Well, because
to me, like I've seen it felt so familiar, like too familiar to like I've seen stuff like this before, just not Star Trek. So it didn't feel like anything. Like I actually feel like I would have rather tried to watch one of the first Star Treks because it would feel so different to anything I've currently watched. So I mean,
it's one of those movies where, compared to most of the other Star Trek movies, until you get to the Generation ones, was the action-oriented one. But if you actually watch it compared to like today's movies, it's very slow moving, and so much a chess match throughout the entire movie. Because, and not to give too much away, the two main the antagonist and the protagonist never actually go face to face on screen.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Oh, sorry. I love it. I'm biased.
Oh, it's a great movie. Biased. Oh, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when I'll start watching Star Trek stuff. One of these
you can almost skip the motion picture. You don't need to see the motion picture to see.
One of these days, I'll set up like a poll on Twitter or something to see what people think I should start with and go on that or something. Because
the motion picture is good, but it's one of those movies you shouldn't come back around to until you've actually gotten into the universe. Like the two best entry points for Star Trek are Wrath of Khan and Voyage Home. And it's weird because Voyage Home works on its own as its own movie. Like, it doesn't have to be a Star Trek movie. It can be any people from the future who just need a whale. It really does. It works in that sense. It's like
they need a whale.
That's the plot.
Yeah.
They need a whale.
Well, they need two whales, not just one, but two. Because they got.
Well, the point, but my point is it could have been any sci-fi movie. You could have called it anything. It didn't have to be a Star Trek movie. It doesn't have to be Spock and Kirk. It can be any, futuristic time travelers, and it would have worked because it's just a fish out of water story. Is all.
So the plot for episode 9 is going to be they need a mercamel. Yeah. The things that Luke sucked the titties out of. That's.
Oh no, it's JJ. So it's going to be some mystery box. They're not going to know that.
Okay.
Oh yeah. If I have one more mystery box in all these things, I'm just gonna explode. I'm mystery boxed out.
Yeah, when they do tropes way off to, I think I was listening to EVS about this, Ethan Van Sciver, and he was talking. He's like, whenever they find something good, they do it till they kill it, and then move on to the next one. And I feel like, yeah, that is pretty much how everything is happening now.
Well,
like
you'll learn. Go ahead. No, I thought you were done. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I was gonna say, like, the Avengers, like, that was the first, like, here's some separate movies, and then they culminate into one, and throughout their individual ones, there's small little hints that they're in the same universe, and then it was very successful when they all came together, and then so now everybody is doing that, and it's like, I think they've tried that before, like way in the past, even like before the Avengers, like with the monsters in their universes or something. I don't know if you could say that's the same, but it's similar.
Kind of.
But then now they saw the humongous success with this, and then everybody did it, and now it's like, can you just like make a movie? Like with me, like I kind of just want there to be a movie that's made that's just one movie, and that's all that is. Just that one story, that one movie, no sequels, no prequels, no TV shows, no, just that, and that's it.
Yeah,
I just want one at least, just one.
You'll learn as you watch more movies. Being a critic, and this is, I get a lot of backlash, and we do it, just all of us in general as critics on YouTube and stuff like that, because you dislike so much stuff, and then you're like, well, why didn't you enjoy that? It's like, because I've seen it 50 times already. You may not have, because you missed all these other movies, but I have seen the same tropes time and time and time again, to where I can predict everything that's going to happen in a movie, and it gets just nauseating. And that's why people ask, well, why didn't you like Spider-Verse? It's like, because I've seen this movie before. I've seen it as Turtles Forever. I seen it when they did it on the Spider-Man series. It's nothing new. Everybody's acting like it's something great, and then they turn around and make Miles Morales more like Peter Parker. For what reason? So,
no reason.
Exactly. And people are just ignoring these things. Like, yeah, it looks cool and it's a cool idea, but let's face it, at best, it's a really, really good straight-to-video movie. But to me, wasting my time and money to see it in the theater, it just didn't. If I would have waited and seen it on video, I would have liked it more. But as it was, I've seen all those tropes a million times. There was nothing there that surprised me, and there was so many things where I'm stopping and asking myself questions as to why these things are happening. And when that starts to happen in a movie, that's when it starts to fall apart for a person. And when you've seen a million freaking movies, you start to notice the little things.
Yes.
The little things that bother a person and take them out of a movie that you don't always notice on a first time through if you're a general audience member who doesn't see 100,000 movies a year. And I can understand that and totally get that, but they don't understand that when you dislike something that they love. It's like,
I know.
It's like, you don't get it though. I've seen this a billion times.
Oh, God, even in Star Wars: The Last Jedi, like, people act like, this is like they did so much new things with it, and I disagree. Like,
no.
We didn't expect it to happen because of the way that we know the characters, but none of the stuff they did was like fucking new.
No,
like,
Last Jedi was like it was written by a 5-year-old on the playground.
Like,
that's the problem with The Last Jedi.
I'm just using that. I don't want to talk about it for that long. But I'm just using it as an example here. Like when he fights his son or something, or when they are distracted. I don't know. Just so much of the movie just is like, we've seen chases before. We've seen stuff where people don't agree, where there's more than what there's good on bad side. There's good, and I don't know. It was just the act. This is so revolutionary, and it's like, no, it wasn't. It was literally mundane. Just
Well, not just that, ridiculous in most spots, and that's what I mean by the whole playground thing. It's like it's like you're dead. No, I came back to life. And now I got superpowers.
And if you haven't seen that type of thing that often, then I could see how somebody could really enjoy it. Like I could
think
see
it's something unique or cool or whatever. No, what Last Jedi is, and anybody who's seen a million movies watches it and sees it and says this was a movie that was the first draft, and they never bothered going back to rewrite it. And that's exactly what it is.
But then let me talk about some other movies though. There's a lot of movies that people don't really talk about as often. Like, so I saw like last year, or the year before, I don't remember, 2017 or 2018, but I tried to see some movies that I don't know anything about. Like there's no sequel, no prequel, no nothing. Apparently a lot of them were adaptations from books or comics or some other foreign movie or something to American. Like Atomic Blonde was one that I never heard anything about before. I think it's from a graphic novel though. But I kind of liked that one. It wasn't like, oh, just freaking amazing, but I liked it. It was a little different than what I thought it was going to be. People were saying it was like James Bond, but with a chick. And I'm like, no, I don't see that at all. And it seems like they could do more on it if they wanted to, expand it if they need to, but they could also just end it as it is, and that's it. And that's fine. That movie was okay. Annihilation, I didn't personally like it, but I didn't hate it either. It was just kind of confusing in a way that I don't really want to think about it too much. Do you guys see Annihilation?
I haven't, not at all. No.
I haven't either, but I think I kind of get where you're going, or at least I can see the pattern and the problem, if that makes sense.
Well, I liked it because they didn't just blurt out what it is, like what the final thing is. Like, you're curious about what this alien entity is, but they don't tell you, they don't show you. It's left ambiguous. You don't know what it is. You don't know why it's here. That's some type of consciousness of some kind, or manifested a consciousness, but it's you don't really get it, and they just kind of leave it mysterious like that. And it's I kind of like that angle, but I also kind of don't care about what would happen next either by the end. And it's it's what it did. It mutates some things, and there's one really intense scene, and it's the movie was okay. But what I'm trying to say is that I went out of my way to see these movies that have no humongous backing, and they were 5 and 6s out of 10s.
Right. And I kind of see what the problem is. And that is that, there's not a lot of good original material out there. And a lot of this stuff anymore is based on a comic book, like you said, that is nobody's ever read. And they're just doing it because it's based on a comic. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But then you lose a lot of the originality. You lose a lot of the creation because all these people are just reusing templates that are already there. So if a lot of the times you feel like you're watching something you've already seen before because of that. Or in the case of things I remember when The Watchmen come out, we'd already had so many movies like that. Not superhero movies per se, but movies like that where they broke down the action hero and stuff like that, And I just, I can see where you're coming from. The best movies are really tough to find. You really got to dig anymore to find the good stuff through the crap.
That's why I liked the movie Tampopo. I'll review that at some point, so you guys know what the hell I'm talking about. But it was a foreign film that I saw in my intro to cinema class, and I was surprised that I liked it because I was why the hell would I like this? All it was about noodles. Was the whole theme.
I know the movie you're talking about. I've never seen it, but I do know it. Yeah,
it's funny, and it has good classic stuff. It's Asian or Chinese or Japanese. I don't know what that. It's over there film, one of those countries, and it was just really good, and you can feel the film innovation that they're trying to do with it. And I don't know how old it is, but I don't think it's more than 30 years old, but it could be.
Right.
The way it looks like it is, but
I don't know if Teresa will agree with me or not, but I like movies like Atomic Blonde. The problem with them are they're trying to market them and push them out there like an MCU movie, and it's not the same thing.
No, you mean they're trying to market it to women?
Well, not just that, but they're just trying to make these movies that nobody's ever heard of. They're making them for too much money and expecting them to bring in the same kind of audiences.
Oh, yeah, not at all. Especially with the way cinema is so expensive nowadays. And I don't know that to bring in an audience, I'm not even sure it can be saved anymore the way cinema is. They got to give you something that wants to make you worth it to see. And usually I find that out because it gets through word of mouth. It's very rare now that I see a movie the first time through. I don't know why they're wasting their money. They're just, I feel like they're just making a big pile of money, pouring gasoline on it and burning it. That's pretty Hollywood much. Right now.
That's not a bad, that's pretty close to it. Because I mean, for every Baby Driver, we'll get 1 million Atomic Blondes or whatever big movie they spend way too much, or Valerian, that's another one.
No, God.
That's a perfect example of what I'm getting at, where they try and take these properties that nobody's ever heard of. Yeah. I mean, granted, yes, some people have, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people haven't. And not only that, they've been borrowed from so much that by the time you see them, it's like, wait a minute, this is just like Star Wars. This is just like this. This is this is just a ripoff. Even though this came way before Star Wars, it doesn't matter now because the other thing is so much into people's consciousness that this John Carter, the same thing happened to that movie, I think. A lot of people have already seen 1 million things like it, even though John Carter was the first that inspired, everything from Superman to Star Wars. I think everybody just looked at it and said, I've seen a million things. It looks like Avatar, you know?
That's a great point. And I know a lot of people love the movie John Carter, but I just, I didn't like that one. I was one of the ones that don't. It just seemed really silly. He just seems to shout a lot and just like fling into the air. I'm like, God, I was just so tired of seeing it on the screen after a while. And then they're like, oh, let's be nice, and then we'll find you. And then he like tries to kill them. It's like, oh, well, I don't know. I just didn't like the guy, I guess, in that movie. But no, I see your point with a lot of this. Valerian, oh my God, what did they do? They spent like 200 million or 170 million or something, right?
It was more than that. It was like 200, yeah.
Yeah, they spent so much on it, and like I watched it. I was hopeful for it. The trailers had me excited for it. And I was like, oh, let me go see this. Seems pretty kick-ass. And then I go to the theater, and then it's like, they somehow made it. They made space look so cool, but seem so boring. Like they literally like enter their planet Alpha or whatever, their like huge colony, and they're like, welcome to the colony. On the left side, they have the brain people that works for the banks for everyone in the universe. And then we have these other people that are giant whale things. And like, I'm falling asleep, and I'm like, and in the story, this makes no sense because they're going to their home that they live at, and they're having the computer tell them what their home is. And that's for the audience. And it just, there's so much of it that's so stupid. That was one of my first reviews, actually, was Valerian, because I hated it so much.
Yeah, I watched it. Because you showed that thing and you cut out your reviews, so I had to go back and watch the reviews that were supposed to be in there.
Thank you for watching it. Holy crap. I want to repost those. I was thinking about re-uploading them, because people, like, I don't like my entire take on all of it, but I still think it's funny enough the way I describe it, because I walk through how much I hated it. It's like they have the blue orb things, and they're in the the casino. I'm just gonna call it casino-ish place, the back alley casino, we'll call it. And we're there for like 20 minutes, and like with Rihanna, and like nothing's happening, and it's just like, yep, here we are, Bubbles, and she's oppressed, and then they go, and then the aliens were just like Jar Jar Binks's, but worse. I'd say they're worse,
right? And we do.
And I'd be happy if those were Gungans, but they weren't. There's like, are we ready? And I'm like, no, not funny at all. And the actress, I could have sworn that she was the little girl in Pacifier, which would have been kind of funny, but I don't know. It was just, no.
The only movies, the original story movies that have caught my interest, really caught them recently, has been the John Wicks.
And there you go. As soon as something does pick up and kick, it kicks off a franchise.
Yeah, but then when they do 10 of those, then
perhaps,
and it's like, oh God, more.
And I'm sure we'll get a Baby Driver too. And because I think there was a plan for more John Wicks, but at least the first movie works on its own to where you can watch it and be like, that was a good movie. And that's what you're right about. I think that's kind of what kicked off the whole entire part of this conversation. Rookie was like, there is no movies anymore where you just get a nice meal out of that movie, because it's always setting up something else.
Like think of even Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
What if that was just the one movie?
It would be awesome. I mean, I love the second film, but I could take or leave the rest, especially the last one. I couldn't. Oh, that was.
Like, I'm fine that they made them, but like, I'm also like, if we were to clear that from history, like, how worse off would we really be?
Not at all. We'd be fine.
Like, we'd still have the movie that some people like or hate, whatever. And,
right.
Some people don't like it, which I can see why some people might not, especially nowadays. But I don't know. I try to look at what was, like, even the Three Ninjas had like 4 sequels. Like, why?
That's Hollywood. And even Hollywood's gotten to the point where they're ignoring sequels. I mean, that's nothing new. They've done it, time and time again in history. But I mean, we got to a point where actually, it's like we almost went back around, because it used to be 9 times out of 10, if Hollywood made a sequel, it would be weird, because it would very rarely feel like it sank up with the last movie, unless you were watching like a Rocky, or you got to the Rocky series or the Karate Kid movies. Then they finally seemed like they started syncing up a little bit more with the movie before that, because before that it was like it didn't matter. They would just remake the first movie and didn't give a shit. And Ghostbusters 2, I think, was like a relic of that kind of sequelization in the 80s that kind of happened, where you just remake the first movie, don't worry about anything new or different, don't change anything, because then if you change something, people won't see it. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Or that's the other thing where they take old properties and just crucify them. Oh, I'm feeling very bitter right now because I've just been seeing all these things with
Stig brings up the Lethal Weapon movies, which actually that's one series that I'm okay with there being sequels.
Yeah, we did get a lot of great series, especially the 90s is where they like Star Wars, I think, and Rocky and a few of those big hits really made people see, oh, people like an ongoing series. They don't want to keep seeing the same movie over and over again.
Yes.
And we finally did start getting a lot better sequels. And a lot of times, at least in my experience, you'd have a great sequel and then you'd have a shitty third film. That's usually where it
Yeah.
See, what I kind of wish that trilogies or sequels would be is like a continuation of the story, like meaning that they kind of have an idea.
right. And that's what I'm getting to is we didn't get a lot of that until like Star Wars and stuff like
I was
that.
gonna say, Lord of the Rings, I know that it was an adaptation from a book series, but even if you were going to make your own creation, like you could have your story be told over 3 movies, like have your story in mind and tell it so it doesn't feel like you're just here's the first one, but again, it's like you feel like a continuation, like Lord of the Rings. Like it didn't feel like they were trying to retread any moment of the previous ones. Like people could argue that the Battle of Minas Tirith was like Helm's Deep, but I would disagree. It didn't feel like that at all.
No, not at all. At all.
It felt like, this is the last batch of humanity here. Like this is the time that everybody needs to fight. So you got to get your balls and go to war, kind of. And if you don't, we're screwed. And you got to get over some old things, and the old packs or whatever with the ghost things. Like it was kind of weird in some spots, but it was good. It was a different feeling than Helm's Deep, which is why I think most people like the Helm's Deep one, because it's so small, such a small scale yet so big. It's like narrow and big.
Well, Lord of the Rings is another reason for a lot of this, and people forget about that too.
Yeah,
and that was a gamble and a half. And I interviewed the producer of those films, Robert Shea, who began New Line Cinema, and it was a huge gamble on his part. I mean, there was no saying that the first movie was going to be a hit. And that's basically what he said in the interview. It's like, if the first movie wasn't a hit, then, we were screwed. But at least the first movie was paid for and stuff like that, because he had all these deals, and he did a lot of what some of these companies do now, and that is pre-sell all the foreign distribution. So, you have these gambles, and you're not going to get a Lord of the Rings all the time, though. You can't just figure your franchise is going to take off. How many times have we seen it just in the last few years, and you think they'd learn their lesson? The Mummy and what are some of these other ones that were supposed to kick off big universes and never did? I know there's at least 3 or 4 of them.
Justice League, DCEU.
Well, the DCEU, was floundering, but there's ones where they didn't even get past much of a first movie, and I can't even think offhand now because I didn't get up not that long ago.
Did they have the Gods of Egypt? Wasn't that supposed to be?
Yeah, that was supposed to kick off a franchise.
One of the worst failures in mankind.
Well, it's like they have to figure out that lightning usually does not strike twice. And when you got something like The Lord of the Rings, it also had the source material from Tolkien, one of the greatest works of modern literature, let alone fantasy as well. So it had the story.
Well, and it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, both of you, since you're both way older than me. No kidding, just on the age. But let's say, so just like from your guys' observations, like knowledge about film, like would people spend much longer of time to get something out there rather than just quickly make a buck compared to now? Because like now it is really it feels assembly line, but I know that some filmmakers take their time with the craft, but I mean by take their time now that means 2 years instead of 1 year. And basically it's like we'll do it in 2 years. That's taking our time. It's like,
I think the biggest problem is the act of filmmaking has sped up so much.
What do you mean?
Like back even just 10, 15 years ago, it would take to make a movie like The Avengers would take almost 2 years to put together. Now you can do it in less than a year or even less. I mean, just look at how
put out 3 of them every year.
Exactly, and it's because special effects have sped up, and digital has made filmmaking so much quicker. Like it used to be, you have to wait. You got 15 or I think it was like 15 or 17 minutes of film in one reel. I can't remember what it was. So you'd have to wait for them to reset up the film, and the same thing with the lighting, because the lighting has changed so much. You used to have to wait hours and hours for them to set up the lighting just right for film. And nowadays you can get away with so much more natural lighting with digital and everything like that. And digital has come to the point where it looks like film, and it almost makes no sense to even film on film anymore, because you're just going to put it in the computer and edit it in digital anyway. So, it's like, and that, again, another thing that has sped everything up is that digital editing. It used to take months to edit a movie, because you're doing it by hand, film reel. But where's that shot? It's like,
this seems like a stupid question, but how did they edit film before? You can just like get a movie editor and edit it.
Like I just said, you'd see this thing called a Steambeck, and it was this big ass machine, and you had 2 big reels on it, and you would literally be like, have film hanging from all over the place, and be like, I need reel 16.
Oh my God. Jesus.
Literally almost 7. Cut and paste.
It is. And then you bring that actual cut in, and you put it together with basically film tape or glue, whichever they used, and it would go through it, and they would just cut it and cut it and cut it literally by hand with scissors, or actually razor. They would have this little thing they would put in, cut it with a razor. But so they would do this, and then when they get all their shit together, then they would send that version in. They would get all those shots from the negative and have that reduped out, so they could use those and get the better versions. And it was a process and a half. Then it would go to sound.
Oh my God, that's why they call it a motion picture.
Yeah,
oh my God.
You're talking about something that would take a good year or 2 to put together. A film has been shrunk down into a matter of months now.
Like I'm making my skit trilogy, which I'll technically call it a movie by now, because it's like over 3 hours in length. That's might as well be a movie. I pretty much just wrapped up filming episode 1, and I just need to wait on some people's submissions. Other than that, episode 1's done. I'm starting to do episode 2 in just a little bit. Actually, after this, gonna go get some shots for that. But it's like, I'll probably have episode 1 edited and done by August 9th. Like by myself.
You can go in, shoot a day, go in and edit that day's work, and have it in whatever.
That's what I do. I film it and edit it in the same.
That was unheard of back in the day of film.
Or at least
wait for the dailies, and then you had to, and you didn't start editing your movie until you were done.
Wow.
Well, and Rookie, in our lifetime, we had the big revolution when Beauty and the Beast came out, the cartoon in 1991. It just had about 30 seconds of that digital computer animation, and it blew our minds away. I remember seeing it in the theater and going, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like that. It was just incredible.
Part of it was specifically digital animation.
It was the part when they're dancing at Beauty and the Beast, and the
so it wasn't a
360 shot.
It comes up, and it comes down through the ballroom from the top, and comes down, and it's like it's a cam, and it's zooming in on Belle and the Beast, and they're dancing, and then that's it. That was the digital part.
Oh, that's
amazing.
I didn't understand that before. Okay, that makes more sense now.
They had used digital in cartoons before that, but that was the first time they'd used it to do a 360 shot, and they used it for the chandelier and a few other elements. So they could do it. Yeah, it was pretty impressive for the time.
Yeah, it was the first I remember. I mean, I'm not a film critic, historian necessarily. I just remember in popular culture, that was the first time. And you go and see that movie again and again and again just to see that part. It was just blew me away.
Well, you're too young to remember this, Critic, but Teresa might remember this. They actually had a big debate for a while if Toy Story should even be able to be nominated for any kind of awards because it was done on a computer.
Well, I did hear about that. I did hear about that, actually.
I remember that.
I started to argue. I learned about this a few years ago. I mean, doing research. But they're arguing about it because they're like, well, it's not shot like on film, like, in person or something.
hand animated, yeah.
So they're like, so how can this be a film? But then it was like, well, then what is it? It's like, well, let's try to define that now.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, this is basically a video game. And it's like, well, then there were people arguing, well, that's pretty much animation and art too, So there was like this big debate for a while on what what constituted an actual animated film. Does it have to be hand drawn and all this kind of stuff? Yeah.
What do you know what the definition of a movie is today? Technically, I mean,
Well, the definition is almost. I mean, we call them films, but they're never. Most of them aren't even on film anymore. You know.
that's what I mean. Is there like a set definition, or is it always kind of changing definition?
Well, the way films have been made has been the same for the last 100 years up until the last, the digital revolution. Pretty much, they did the same stuff since the beginning of film. They just improved upon it. And it got to the point where they couldn't make it any better, and then digital was catching up. And guys like George Lucas and stuff like that really pushed digital editing, and it made a big difference, like I said, in the time that it takes to get these movies out. And and then when they removed the whole have to, that was another thing, is you had to make prints. Like, that was why it took so long for a movie sometimes to get to a lot of theaters, is because you had to make that many prints. They had to sit there and wait for the prints to get actually, like, literally machine and print out an entire film reel.
Oh my god! You should send it to every theater.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
God.
Like, yeah,
literally.
Okay, I didn't think about the logistics of that. Okay, that's a lot more.
Like, it was a big process, and not only that, you would sit there in the houses where they would be having the films come out, and the cinematographer would usually sit there and go through each and every one of the films and match up ones that had the same color tint, because you had no way of controlling that. Like, they would come out, some would come out a little bit more blue, some would come out a little bit more pink.
So when Wizard of Oz, that was the first colored movie.
It wasn't the first, but it was one of the first major ones, yeah, that had the 3-color Technicolor, I believe.
What was the difference? Like, what'd they do?
Well, first of all, you had to have a completely different setup in your theater. And if some of those old color films, they actually had 3 strips of film that would be used together. So you had the red, the blue, and the green, I think it was, or whatever. And they would all mix together, kind of like how you do your hues on your TV.
Yeah.
And they would basically play them all at the same time, and it would look like it's in color. Now, you wouldn't get full, like, color, like lifelike color, but you would get colors. And then you would get to the point where they got, like, with Wizard of Oz, they revolutionized it a little bit more to where it was actual lifelike color, and you were actually getting, like, the full color palette at that point. And really, that was just kind of the next stage of evolution. It was just expensive. The lighting was expensive. The equipment was expensive. It was a lot cheaper to do stuff in black and white. So that's why black and white stuck through for a while. And TV really helped black and white stick around for a while, too, because TVs were black and white. So what the hell was the point of spending the money on film in color?
This is awesome. I love this conversation.
Well, and that's why Kevin Smith did Clerks. I don't know if you're familiar with Clerks. That's why he did that in black and white, is because it was going to cost them like another couple $1,000s for the lighting kit for the color cameras than it would for the black and white cameras. So and they could use most of the natural lighting for the black and white. So they just went with the black and white because it was going to save them that much money. So, I mean, it's just logistics at that point. And nowadays it doesn't matter. For $100 you can make a movie. Make a movie.
Well, I can agree with that, because I've spent my budget so far. It's just a little over 100 on mine. So, yeah, I can agree to that.
Well, I think that's why, because of the technology, that's why we're having a lot of these independent fan films being just as good as, if not better than, the big budget ones. We have the technology, and often these have better stories.
Well, yeah, because there's more passion in them, and the people who are making care. When you put somebody like Kurtzman in charge of Star Trek, who doesn't even give a crap about Star Trek, you're going to get what we get. And that's the biggest problem is we got so many people who are talented, but they're in the wrong places, or they're getting jobs because of diversity or because of whatever. And it's like, no, this used to be different. People used to go out and have the passion. And, when the movie system started out, it was a lot like television. Like, you were hired by the studio as a director, an actor, whatever, and you worked for the studio for however many years, and you got paid whatever a week doing whatever the hell it was they told you to do. You didn't get to choose your movies and stuff like that until you got to be a big actor. Then you got to a little bit more say, but you still worked for the studio system. And then when all the moguls started dying out and selling the studios, they started selling them to, like, beverage companies and shit like that. People who had no idea how to make movies, but they knew how to advertise.
What?
And then that's where people like Spielberg and Lucas and Scorsese and Ford Coppola and all those guys started coming in. And it was like, all they were doing were like, here, we don't know what you're doing. Here's some money. Go make us some movies. We'll sell them. And that's how we got all the great movies throughout the 70s and 80s, and is because these beverage companies and other companies that bought up all the movie studios are like, you know what? We have no idea what to do. You guys go do it, and we know how to sell it.
Yeah, they let the creators do the create. And what's mad to me about it all is I'm in classical music. It would be positively absurd if one day they said, okay, here's our new conductor. The person's never actually really conducted and can't play any string instruments, can't play any horns, can't play percussion, has absolutely no idea what they're doing. But hello, he's going to now conduct the symphony. That's what they're doing with movies. It's insane.
Well, and then we got past that point where and this is where Rob, my co-host from Midnight's Edge, always pipes up and says this story, but it's true. You went from these mavericks making movies the way they know how to do it and just experimenting and trying all kinds of crazy things, and that's why we got so many great movies like Jaws and Star Wars, and all this stuff came out of that. And then you get into the late 80s, early 90s, and they started selling them out to all the conglomerates and the corporations, like, film studios were bought up by like television companies and stuff like that. So it kind of got back to the old school things, and the upper management started sticking their nose into things where it didn't belong again.
So how would you describe where we're at right now?
That's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
The upper management, and the story I was getting to is there's this famous story with Frank Zappa where he says, it used to be the A&R guys, they like, I don't know this stuff. The kids they listen to this crazy music. Just you kid, you gets the burgers, you with the long hair. You go out there and you find me some bands. So that kid goes out, finds him a bunch of bands that make a buttload of money. So they make this kid a CEO, right? So this CEO gets such a big head on him that 10 years down the road, when he's way out of touch with shit, thinks he knows what the kids are into. It's like, yeah, you knew what the kids were into 10 years ago, but you don't know anymore. You don't understand what the kids are into anymore, and you don't understand where people are. And the studios love to think of us as just cattle. They love to think of us as stupid. It's just every movie, if you watch it, the reason there's so much crap in it, like you said earlier, that over explains plots, is because they think you are a moron.
Yeah. They don't tell, they tell, don't show, because they think we won't get it unless they sit there and spell it out.
Yeah. I agree on that. Man, this has turned to a much better stream than I thought it was going to be. But people in the chat, we stopped talking about Karate Kid 4.
Well, and it does stem from the next
I love this conversation. Like, I want to do one with you, Ed Nerdrotics. Last time we were talking, he has a big amount of knowledge that I didn't realize either, that he worked in actually the physical making of the products. Like, one of these days, I want to have one with you and him big time and talk about film like this.
Well, and to tie it back into Karate Kid, this is exactly where this leads back into the era I was talking about, because this is where Sony bought Columbia from Coke.
Wait,
see, now in Sony, Columbia Pictures was kind of like the little guy. The biggest things they had were like the Three Stooges shorts and crap like that throughout the years. They didn't really have much. And then in the 80s, they had like all these great movies that they had, because they were like La Bamba and Stand By Me, Ghostbusters. They were smaller, but they made a lot of money. Yeah. And then Sony bought them up in 89. I'm going to say it was 89 or 90. And then they're like, well, what do we got? What do we got? And that's how the next Karate Kid happened. Because they're like, oh, the Karate Kid, let's do that. Because I think Karate Kid 3 was one of the first movies that was released right after the purchase. It started under Coke and ended under Sony, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting.
Wow.
That makes sense. Well, and it's the same way what they Disney did with Star Wars. They were like, people like Han Solo, let's do a movie of that. Let's do a movie of this with the Death Star. Okay. It's like they just think, well, people, that's what they like, so they're all going to come and spend a bunch of money. And it's like, no. You got to have the soul. You got to have your soul into it.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing that I want to see, is like, I want to see the effort that was put into it. And it's like, nowadays it feels like, people, do it just sitting down, and it's like, I could, I'd finish the movie, but I'm watching TV.
Right.
And it's like,
why companies like Sony bought Columbia, right? It's the same reason they bought all the music companies, so you can listen to Sony music in your Sony CD player, or watch a Sony movie on your Sony TV.
Their product placement in their movies. Right?
Player. Oh, yes, very much so.
They have to let you know that they're using their Sony device. Yes.
Of course, product placement everywhere.
Which I mean that makes sense though. I mean, I'll admit though, if I were a filmmaker and I'm trying to get a better budget, I would totally understand some product placement here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah. When again, when you oversaturate it, it's like, dude, can you like maybe not shove it in my face? Thanks. But no, this has been a great conversation. I'm loving this. Chad, I've been reading you guys while we've been talking. Don't worry. Just haven't. This has just been kind of a quick day with everything. Studios are so out of touch now. Tom knows his stuff. Yes, he does. Terminator
I don't know
2,
about that, Natasha, but thank you.
Terminator 2 has soul.
Yes,
yeah, I can feel like that the work to put into it was pretty tough. Like it was a lot of effort.
Terminator 2 speaks for itself because everybody hates it when I say this, but it's true. And don't get me wrong when I say this because I love Terminator 2. It is a remake of the first movie, almost word for word.
I would agree with
the only difference is you just swap some characters.
See, I just prefer the second one because I feel like I can't relate as much to what's going on in the first one. I'm not a mom or nothing. I can't. I'm just like, I don't know. She's running away, and there's a guy that's trying to protect her from the robot. And okay, cool. But then with the kid, it's just kind of funnier seeing that interactions, I guess, with him and Arnold. It's like,
yes,
that dynamic is just funnier to me.
Don't get me wrong; it has enough of its own thing to stand on its own. It's just a much
funnier and creepier.
Like, it's a much more polished version of the first movie. Yeah,
the side, and the guy has his, the stepmom or whatever's, head with the sword through it, or the dad.
Yeah.
I forget which one. And I'm like, oh my god! And they kill the dog, or something, right? Or they tease that they kill the dog. I forget the dog's name.
Wolfie. Yeah. Well, Max is the actual dog's name, but
like, oh no, you can't do that.
What's the dog's name? Max.
The mom's crazy for all the things, which in real life, that nobody would believe you.
Hey, what's wrong with Wolfie?
Well, I love I wish they'd have stopped after Terminator 2, to be honest. That's my personal opinion. It's like, okay, we have 2. They're really good. Okay, they're because it seems like I'm looking like what they're doing right now with this next movie. Where the hell did that come from?
Well, I thought that Terminator 3 was a okay-ish ending. Like it was kind of leading up to where, the future starts. Kind of.
It's a good way to loop it around. You can end Terminator 3 and be like, okay, I can see where the next movies happen now. Kind of thing.
See,
original movies, I mean.
I was confused when I was younger and I saw that because I thought that he and the girl were the only 2 humans that survived, and I thought they were supposed to be the Adam and Eve type thing. Then it's like, oh wait, no, they survive, and there's plenty of other survivors too, thousands of other survivors at least. And
the end of that movie saved that movie. So, I love the ending of Terminator 3. I'll stick up for that any day of the week. Yeah, the rest of the movie has its issues, but
and you see, I thought that Salvation came after that. Minus the android that thinks he's a human plot. I kind of liked it as far as they're actually showing the future events happen now. I was like, okay, this is all right. And, he's supposed to be the leader and the military and everybody knows of him, but they still don't really want to listen to him. I'm like, I kind of like those dynamics there. You're in the future and you can't really trust people because you don't know if they're a freaking android. Maybe you really can't fight an android one-on-one or a Terminator. Sorry. I like to call him android. I don't know why, but I don't know. I like that dynamic. It just could have been executed better, but Salvation was at least entertaining. And then Genesis, oh my god, I didn't care at all. They spoil it in the trailer. Like, well, why would I have any suspense? I know how the movie's gonna end. Like, who cares?
It's almost like history repeating itself, but in a bad way. Because most people, again, you weren't even around then, but Terminator 2 got spoiled early on. Because if you watch that movie, the way it's supposed to play out, the people weren't supposed to know that Arnold was the good guy.
Really?
Yeah,
because we sure knew about it.
Yeah, that was the problem. Is they got leaked out early, and
there's 2 androids, right? Isn't that what you're supposed to think? There's 2 Terminators gonna
the internet leaked it before it even existed back then, and because everybody was following that movie like every breath that Arnold took, and it got out early that he was the good guy, and if you watch the movie, it's very obvious that you're not supposed to know he's the good guy until he doesn't shoot John in the mall. It says, "Come with me if you want to live." That's the moment you're supposed to realize, oh, this is not the good guy. The cop is the bad guy. Oh shit! You know?
Oh man, I would have loved to have been surprised by that.
Yeah, but they got leaked out early on, so then they're like, "Fuck."
Oh my
See,
gosh.
that's interesting.
Sorry,
But thinking, since you brought that up though, with the spoilers and the people following things so closely, like how do you think there is any possible way for somebody to be making a movie and things not leak the hell out? Or
back then it was easy to make.
I mean, now in current modern day,
Now,
think
no.
there's any possibility? Like,
Well, that's why everything's like secure, so secure now. They never used to have that back in the day.
Well, are things secure? Because I mean, it seems like I don't know if things are secure because they put out leaks or potential leaks, or they have so many things out there that speculate on crap. I don't know if it's an actual report from something or just a guess.
This is where we come in because we deal with this on a daily basis, and then you have to try and discern if something's either a real story or if it's a planted story. Because especially Disney likes to send out fake spoilers for Avenger movies to confuse the real ones.
Yeah, like Captain Marvel getting the win on Thanos. God damn.
Yeah. So again, nowadays it's actually an orchestrated thing.
Okay.
Because here's the thing: when you sign up for a movie now, compared to what it used to be, it's a big deal. Like it used to be, oh, we're doing this movie. Here's the script, and they toss them a script, and then they wouldn't care what happened to that script after that. Nowadays, every script is numbered, serial numbered, got watermarks on it. You sign off an NDA and all this other crap.
Yeah.
It is, and if that script gets out, you best believe you better have a good lawyer, because nowadays they are very, very, like, the only person who used to be like this back in the day was Lucas and probably Cameron. Speaking of, like, 'cause I remember as tight a ship as T2 was back in the day, that stuff still got out. But that was just because it was so high profile. Like, Terminator 2 was the biggest movie ever when that movie was made. Like, they spent more money on that movie than any movie had ever been spent on it before. More advertising, more everything, to where they had never made a movie like that. And it was like, this movie is either going to be the biggest thing ever, or it's going to be the biggest bomb ever. Because the first Terminator was a quaint hit at best. It had gained this notoriety on video and cable over the years, basically. And there was this build up, pent up, like, we want a sequel. We want a sequel. And it was really like you felt it, and it permeated before the internet even existed. It was like people were just clamoring for it. It was like Ghostbusters as well, but then Ghostbusters came out and everybody's like, oh. Yeah, I enjoyed it at the time because I was a kid and I didn't know any better. But as an adult, looking and seeing it now and looking back, I'm like, I can see where people were upset because we just got the same damn movie all over again with a baby.
Yeah, and far too much slime.
Yeah, and it was basically, and anybody who like knows anything knows they were trying to make it more like the cartoon. So again, you took this edgy, not quite adult comedy and took it way back to this really kiddie kind of humor. Yeah.
It was it was a disappointment. I remember that being. I actually was disappointed when I saw it. I didn't like it.
I mean, yeah, again, in retrospect, I mean, even as a kid, I was like, oh, no, it's not as good as the first one. And that usually wasn't something I said, because when I was younger, it was like, whatever the new movie was, that was like in my head. It was like, oh, that's it. That's the biggest movie ever,
Yeah, the best movie I've ever seen, ever.
So, like, even at that point, I was like, it was good, but it just wasn't as good as the first one. And I think that's the first time I ever really remember saying something like that.
Yeah.
As a little kid,
Yeah. One thing I wish is that, like, I wish that we'd stop hearing about so many announcements of movies and kind of just, there was a time, I guess this was when I was less invested in seeing what comes out, but it's like, I would just see a trailer and go, oh, that movie's coming out in a couple months. Oh, sweet. And now I can start looking into it. Maybe.
Yeah, that stuff's changed a lot because of the time again.
It's like 3 years from now,
there's a movie and all that. Yeah.
Can I get like a surprise a little bit? Can I, do I need to know so far ahead that you're going to try to make 20 DC movies? Like,
well, that's the internet. That's a big part where the internet comes into play. Like, it doesn't help that, we can follow movies from the time that a writer goes, I'm going to write this movie way before it's even greenlit, to the point where it's done. You're talking years upon years upon years. And we follow this from point A to B to C till completion, and it seems like it's this long, tedious journey to where back in the day, most of the time we didn't know about a movie until just before it came out.
Yeah,
Like, unless they specifically made a big deal out of it, like Terminator 2 or something like that, when they did, you didn't have a clue. Batman was another one I remember being a big deal before it came out, because everybody's like, Michael Keaton is cast as Batman, and that like blew up the internet before the internet existed again.
Yeah. Yeah, we all thought he was going to totally suck. Everyone was like, Michael Keaton, this is going to be horrible. And then what a big surprise it was. It was such a big surprise.
Well, that's because finally people saw it and they're like, oh, this is what Tim Burton's doing. But you got to remember, in the psyche of America at the time, in the world, really, the only Batman that would really penetrated anybody's memory was the Adam West Batman.
Yeah.
And at that time, everybody's like, is this what this is going to be? A campy 2-hour movie or what?
Yeah.
Oh God.
There was a lot of people who were afraid. That's what. And then when Michael Keaton, that's what she's getting. As soon as they announced, oh, this is gonna be a fucking comedy. Oh my God! Because you got to understand, Michael Keaton had only been in like 3 or 4 big movies at this point, and it was like Night Shift, Gung Ho, Mr. Mom, and Beetlejuice.
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Mom. That was
that was the headline. Mr. Mom cast as Batman. It's like, what?
Exactly.
That's hilarious. Oh my God.
Everyone's like, what are you doing? You should have like Sylvester Stallone as Batman. What the frig is this? You know,
it's like imagine this though. Imagine if we lived in a time where it's like, so let's just say that like The Last Jedi was out and that's it. And then we don't know, we have no idea when the next one's gonna be out. Like episode 9 could be a year from now, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. We don't know what month.
One of the first times in history we probably knew we were getting another movie was after The Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
You're right. You're like, this is going to end somewhere.
Because when The Empire Strikes Back came out, I mean, I was really young, but I've seen enough stuff and read about it to where, I mean, don't listen to a lot of hype. People debated the movie, but it wasn't hated at all. What people hated about The Empire Strikes Back and what people misinterpret as the hate is that it was left on a note where people are like, wait, that cannot be the ending. We have to know. We can't, there's going to be another movie? People felt like they were being gypped. That was the first time in history where, nowadays we're used to that being.
Was that like the first cliffhanger?
Yeah, like
really,
we got to get like 10 more credit scenes. Sit down, Bertha. We got more movie. Wait, no, we didn't have that then. Everybody was like, wait, what? You cannot leave us on this note. You cannot say that Vader is his father and
and they did all that. Yeah.
And that Han Solo is frozen in carbonite.
That's how he ends. That's the end of Han's story.
And there was a lot of people who had no clue that there was going to be another one. And even Lucas at that time's like, if this fucking doesn't work, we're done.
Okay, I can see how the different. Okay, that makes more sense because when people are like, the Empire Strikes Back was very divisive. Yeah, it seems like
no.
Left on a cliff.
It wasn't the quality of the film wasn't divisive.
No.
Plenty of other things around the film. Yeah. The stormtroopers are Nazis. It's a problem. It's problematic. There's not enough black people. I only counted 3.
And not only that, you had 3 years to wait.
So, I think that's a really good amount of time between films.
Yeah.
You're like, no, you cannot do this to me.
Yeah. But it was so much fun because I remember on the playground, we would have endless debates. Was Darth Vader lying? That was the thing. Yep. And we actually thought he was, and they've even done analysis that children automatically were like, he's lying. He's lying. And the older people were able to get more of the nuances, but we were able to enjoy it in the same way. But we would debate, we'd talk about it. Like, is he lying? Is he not lying? Kind of like Santa Claus, is he real or is he not real?
That was a big thing for years, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was so much fun. Oh, and then when the last one came out, that was the first movie I lined up for. I was 9 years old, and that's the first movie I lined up for. It was so much fun.
Just imagine how that would have been, though, if that was Wookiees instead of Ewoks.
Yeah, and you got to remember, Lucas... Oh, sorry, my dog.
Doggy.
Yeah, sorry. And Lucas, he spent all his money, his own money, on Empire Strikes Back for the most part. So this was a big gamble for him. You got to give him credit for that. I mean, he did not know if it was going to work.
Well, see, I think that's one of the things, too. I mean, these days, how risky is it to make a movie?
Right. Well, and that's just it. And nowadays it's the common thing. You're expecting the ending to be a stinger for the next one. And it's stupid. It gets sickening after a while because it's like, I just want, like you said in the beginning of this, I just want a movie. I don't want to have to wait for the next one. It would have been like at the end of Karate Kid 3, to bring it back around to Karate Kid, if they set up the fourth movie in the end of Karate Kid 3, like, Miyagi gets some letter that says, you got to come, your friend died, blah, 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 blah. And then, there's a picture of everybody and there's a picture of young Julie or some stupid shit. It would just come off as really dumb. You know what I mean? It would just like, this is the way every movie ends now, though.
You don't need to set the table. You don't need to prep the table for every next movie. Like, a movie can start just fine later on its own. Like, Bill and Ted 3. What's your thoughts on that coming out?
Because I can't friggin' wait.
Like, I feel like this doesn't feel like they're forcing it. It honestly just seems like the actors, the people that want to make it, they want to make it, and they are passionate for it. It seems like, Keanu and
they've been trying to make this movie for well over a decade now.
Yeah.
It's a passion project, definitely.
That seems kind of like with Deadpool. Like, Ryan Reynolds really wanted to make that a thing and really tried. And so with the first one, you felt the love for it. And it's like,
you got to remember, they weren't asking for a third movie. Nobody was asking in the studio. And actually, Orion went bankrupt not too long right after the second movie came out anyway. And it wasn't Bill and Ted's fault. It was RoboCop 3's fault. But
oh gosh.
But there was nobody like going, we're going to get a third one soon, because the second movie did not do well. And that's sad, because that was a fair example of a great movie that does not retread the first movie, tries something completely different.
It goes that they literally don't. What do they retread?
Nothing. Not a damn thing. And that's the best part about it. And that's where, like, I'm so thrilled for this third movie, because I mean, I've been in some contact with Ed Sullivan, the original writer, who's working on this one too, and a little bit, but he won't give me nothing yet. He's like, soon we'll talk. But everything I've gotten from every interview I've read over the years and what we're getting from the filming so far is, I hope this is like another kind of, we're going to get a little bit of time travel. We're going to get death's going to be in it. So it's going to be a mix of those. But like I brought up to like Mech and stuff, what if we go through dimensions and stuff? What if something got rift and we find out there's alternate dimensions too on top of it? So it'd be like a third thing they add to it, in a third dimension.
It could. See, like, I like that idea that we're talking about here with Bill and Ted, because it's like, it's a type of series, like a type of concept that you could add a lot to it, but you don't have to, and it's fun. And I feel like you'd have to be pretty dumb to ruin it. I feel like, because
the first movie was
silly. It's so silly, but it's like it's executed well.
Well, I think because it's also got a sincerity to it, but at the same time, it's very tongue in cheek. And if Bill and Ted were like Beavis and Butthead or Cheech and Chong, I don't think it would work.
No, I agree.
It wouldn't have worked.
The humor almost annoys me, but they don't. Like, other people are kind of like that. It's kind of like, really.
They're not mean-spirited. They're not druggies. They're not sex addicts. They're
just like teens that want to be rock stars someday. I know actual friends that were like that. So it's like, I can totally see this.
Innocence. They're not. They're blissfully ignorant.
Well, and they also, it has the potential to, it won't be politically correct, and if they do that, it'll be a massive hit, because they were before political correctness was a thing. I hope, and if they stay true to that and just not quite go over the edge, but kind of a little bit, I think it'll be a breath of fresh air. It'll be
the first movie is like Monty Python meets America.
Yes.
Monty Python meets American Teenagers. And then the second movie was like classic cinema and theology meets American Teenager.
I don't know what you They had the Reaper, they had the Martians that fused into one, they went to hell, and they had the Easter basket and the old lady and the sergeant. You can't
face their fears.
Their other selves were robots this time. See, that might be the only thing that they could say that was like similar to the first, was that they had two copies, but they were different.
Was how they tricked themselves.
They were different copies. They weren't themselves from the future. They were manufactured. And then they had, well, you probably loved that they had the Star Trek reference. With the location or whatever. And no, it seemed just really good. I don't know. That's a
Yeah, when that movie came out, it bombed horribly, unfortunately.
yeah.
Yeah.
Got
I'm
really horrible reviews.
hopeful for Bill and Ted 3 that it'll be okay. But
The
like
second
again,
movie is a lot darker than
I
the
don't,
first.
I don't, I don't hate the idea of sequels or continuations in the chat for people just understanding. I'm just saying that seems to be the only goal, and when that is the goal to make 2, 3, 4, the first movies and the whole series usually kind of sucks now. It doesn't. You don't have the passion behind it. You don't have the ideas behind it. You don't have the innovation behind it. When that's
Right.
your own.
And filmmakers used to dread making a sequel. A lot of times it wasn't like a thing that anybody wanted to do.
I heard actors too, like they're like, I don't want to be in this again. Like, can I be in another movie? Like, I want to be in a different ones. Like,
and it used to have a stigma to it. And we've finally reached a time where things have changed. Like I said, I've said this a million times, but most people forget that sequels never made as much money as the first movie ever. You had a rare, and we brought this up during Karate Kid 2. That was a rarity where you had the second movie actually made more money than the first one, which was so rare in Hollywood at that time, because the only thing about a sequel is they could guarantee it would do at least generally half of what the first movie. So they knew they could guarantee their money for the year off one of these tentpole sequels, usually, as long as it played. But then if it bombed horribly, then they were screwed, because they generally would put a lot of money into these sequels, and the studios wanted them, but the filmmakers hated them because they hated living up to the hype and expectation and all this kind of crap. To where nowadays you got these kids coming in like, I got a whole series set up in my mind. It's not like it used to be. Yeah.
Speaking of that, though, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's kind of how I started in my head, but I slowly evolved, I would say. I say evolved because it took me a while to get around to a certain point, where, like, let's say 5th grade, like right before middle school and like to the end of high school, like to a couple years after high school is how long the process took. Like, I had my own like Star Wars ideas in my head, and I would try to write them down, and I still have copies of those, by the way, which I'll probably share one day because they're so stupid and funny, though, seeing my little kid brain. And like, those ideas were there, and then like later I was like, okay, I was trying to write a book, kind of was the idea. Then after a couple of years, I was starting to realize I love movies more. I'm like, okay, like, how can I write a movie? And then at some point I was starting to have all these ideas in my head for movies, or like for one type of movie, but a whole series. And I'm like, I'm going to write this character, and then this is his parents' backstory, and then these people, and then these things. And like, I have spirals full of information of like stuff for like a whole series. Like, and then there's a prequel about this and this or that, or something happens here that explains this. And then at some point I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like, I can't, I'll never succeed like this. Like, I got to just make one story. And I finally got one down to a better type of story that has room to continue, but there's one story overall. Like, and then if there's more that I could do, cool. But you got one. And then now I try to make my own, my skits, and I feel like I do better trying to make shorter stories than longer stories. So, I kind of learned that a little bit. I don't have like 1,000 things planned. I have like 1 or 2 things, and I get them done. And then at some point I'll come up with a different idea later.
Yeah. The creative process is always very interesting. Now, if I'm correct, you all have a little bit of film history better than I do. The Godfather 2, those 2 movies, when it was only just the 2 of them, that was the only really respectable sequel, and it was so rare because it was the one that won Best Picture.
Yes.
For both. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a rarity in Hollywood that wasn't seen too much. I don't think at all to that point. You're right. Because not only that was it a continuation, it was still they had enough material from the book yet to use. So I think that's another reason why people found it more respectable. Was a lot of it wasn't, some of it was, the continuation, but they also pulled a lot of the classic, like all the classic elements I think are pulled from the book. And some of the other stuff is pulled from the book and then just extended upon. And I think even Puzo helped, work with it on it, if I remember right, too. So it was one of those prestigious things. And not only that, I think it was like, everybody's like, well, even then, I think they were worried that Coppola was taking a gamble doing that.
Yes. Yeah, because the whole story with Vito Corleone was it Vito, or did I have the right name? Gosh.
Yeah, Vito when he was younger and all that was in the book, yeah.
I read the book before I saw the movie, and I remember getting very confused because I'm like, "Where's all that stuff with what's his name?" And then I found out that they had done it in the second movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, yeah, and then we had the Star Wars was the first real trilogy, though, wasn't it?
Kind of like to where, like, see, a lot of people think that Lucas had the whole thing planned out, but to me, it was a lot like what I gather from my research throughout the whole thing. It was a lot like what you did, Rookie, where you kind of had all these ideas and then to build on this world, and then you kind of had them put away or whatever it is. That's what Lucas did. He had all this world building he did in his head and supposedly written here and there and everywhere on scrap paper.
I made histories of planets. I made character backstories for people and their families. Like I tried to create the whole, and then I'm like, I don't even have the base. I just have everything but nothing. Like everything but nothing.
Because there's interviews where, you know, of that era with him where he's like, you know, I have all these plans with all, you know, I give all these characters a backstory, and I do plan on coming back around to it and telling that story someday. You know, so it's not like he didn't have the idea at some point. Don't get me wrong, but he never sat down and planned all these movies out like some people think he did.
No,
you know?
not well. Especially when you look at what his original drafts were, some of the book, of A New Hope. Well, first of all, it wasn't even called A New Hope until like 2-3 years afterwards.
I'll learn that later. Just a couple of years ago, actually, that it was just called Star Wars.
Yeah, and that came in the re-release prints.
And I never, ever will believe that he had it completely planned out, because if he had, he wouldn't have had all that stuff with Luke and Leia.
Well, he contradicts himself sometimes too, and this is a story that always sticks with me. I want to find the interview, but there was an interview where he was talking about writing Return of the Jedi.
Oh no, don't do that.
And he's like, you know, I had this issue where Vader was fighting Luke and Luke was refusing to fight him, and I couldn't come up with any reason for Luke to fight him. So I was like, well, maybe if we make Leia the sister and he threatens Leia and that'll work. So that's, as far as I know, the first time he had the idea to make Leia the sister. Because if you go back, and even Lawrence Kasdan has said, when Yoda says, you know, when Obi-Wan goes, that boy is our last hope, and then Yoda goes, no, there is another. There was supposed to be a third character introduced in Return of the Jedi as a new Jedi.
What?
Because there was a point where Luke might possibly have died in the first act of Return of the Jedi.
What?
Well, I'm glad they didn't. It's never a good idea to introduce a new character in the third.
No, but that was where that line came from. But retroactively, he means Leia. But at the time, there was supposed to be a whole nother character introduced, planned for, because Lucas was all into that shit, and a lot of that had to start doing with the toys. He's like, the more stuff I introduce, the more stuff I make, the more toys I can make. Because look at how many of those toys are just characters that aren't even on scene for more than 2 seconds.
I have that fat guy who owns the Rancor. I have him. I have Kit Fisto. You know, Plo Koon. They're only in the movies for, I don't even know if you could say 10 full seconds. But they're more recognized.
Yeah. And that's why I said, you know, everybody's like praises the prequels for like, well, he did all this new stuff. It's like, yeah, but you don't understand. If he would have known that you would have turned around and bought X-Wings all over again, he would have just put X-Wings back in there.
Oh, no.
He really doesn't. It's more about as much crap as he could make up, as much toys as, because look at the especially for the Phantom Menace, how much stuff we got out of that movie that is hardly even in the movie.
Oh yeah, the merchandising went really overboard on that.
Oof. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I kind of started to realize that, I don't know if it was 80s or 90s, but one of the trends kind of started to be like, you know, where the TV shows or movies weren't always made to be the movies and to be that entertainment, but to kind of give you a reason to buy a toy.
That started in the 80s.
Like,
because before that,
we want you to buy the toy, but we got to get you a reason to. So instead of making an ad just for the toy, let's make a whole TV show. Then you can go, oh, look, I'm playing with that TV show or something. It's like,
okay, yeah, here's the thing. Back in the day, Star Wars was one of the first movies to have a successful toy line attached to a film. Prior to that, though, as far as how television worked, you were not allowed to have a cartoon based on a toy. You could make a toy based on any cartoon or existing material, but you could not. And then they changed the rules, and that's when we got Masters of the Universe, and G.I. Joe, and Transformers.
Power Rangers, I didn't realize that is basically toy driven.
Oh, all that stuff in the 80s.
I was like, what? Now it makes total sense to my brain now. I'm like, that's why they have new Zords. That's why they get new teams. That's why they get new weapons and all. Oh my God, that's so you can have more toys to buy. Oh, holy crap.
Yeah.
I did not get that. That's why they have new forms, new battle modes, and whatever. It's like, because that's another thing you can buy.
Because they changed the rules. As long as they adhered to certain rules, then they could get away with it then. And that's why we have at the end of the Transformers and all these other shows and G.I. Joe. What did we learn today, kids, in today's episode? That's why those are there.
Oh, so it's not just an ad for a toy.
Well, it is, but they could they loosened up the rules. But they're like, okay, you can do this, but the shows, you cannot show humans being hurt or killed. You cannot show kids in too much peril. You can't show, and you have to have some kind of redeeming value in the episode. So they'd write a show, and then even guys like Paul Dini and them have even said this in interviews, because he used to write on He-Man and stuff. He'd be like, so we'd write these shows, and at the end of the show, we just look at it and go, okay, well, what can we extrapolate from this to say there's a lesson here?
Well, what's funny is that people talk as if those were such violent TV shows. And I'm like, based on what you just said, how is that even possible?
It wasn't. And that's the thing. There's this mentality of it because you've seen the kids doing it with the toys. But if you watch He-Man, He-Man never punched a single character ever. Not once.
He would throw a guy? He would throw one?
Yep. He would punch things, but he would not punch people or, creature. Even the Beast Men and all them, none of them ever got punched.
Yeah, now that you mention it, you're absolutely right. I never occurred to me, but I can't think of a single example.
Well, because I grew up on Power Rangers, and there's a lot of punching in that.
Oh, well.
That's different. That became a different time, and I think they got away with stuff because A, it was live action, and B, again, even though they could get away with certain things, they were still careful.
Well, I was gonna say it. So a lot of people give it Power Rangers, the whole series, a lot of crap, which I totally get because it seems so bizarre and corny, and a lot of it is very weird and stupid, but there is a lot of gems in it, especially in some of the ones after Mighty Morphin. There's a lot of and Time Force is my best example because these are adults, full-on adults as Rangers. They start with the Red Ranger getting killed by the enemy. He gets killed after the Pink Ranger proposed to him. Or they're about to get married. He gets
killed. Is this in the original series, or is this down the road?
This is later. This is four or five seasons after Mighty Morphin.
See, because then they moved to cable, and their cable shit's different.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, they've done dramatic stuff with this.
Yeah, well, and see, Power Rangers falls into different categories. Yeah,
they still keep it very corny and weird and kid friendly, but it's they also integrate some depth to it, and it's they had in the Lost Galaxy is when they had the first Ranger die, get killed, but it was it's very silly, and they have a ghost go oh, I'm okay, but they get killed still, and it's
you can get away with certain things. Well, nowadays there's no, they don't have half the regulations they used to, and with cable they don't have any of them.
I wish that they would have some regulations, because I feel that's where a lot of creativity came up. It's how can you get that pull, that emotional feel, or that visual thing without being so blunt? How can you portray it without it being in your face? So you have to be creative with the situation, and now you can just do whatever you want, and it's okay.
And maybe it almost forced them into good writing.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of saying. With some boundaries, you have to do what you can with what you got, as Burt Gummer would say from Tremors. Doing what I can with what I got, and if you can make something good out of it, great. You give some guy $1 million, you give some guy $20,
But yeah, that's really what it boiled down to at that time. And again, they could beat up robots, they could beat up monsters, certain things like that. So that's where I think the Power Rangers started out, and they were okay for Fox. But then again, I think didn't they move to cable after a while?
They moved around a lot. Actually,
see, because then when you get to cable, that's how Nickelodeon got away with a lot of shit, is because they are on cable, so they didn't have to adhere to a lot of the same regulations.
Well, yeah, but
as network did.
that was past when what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That came like I'm talking like 2010 is when they got to the Nickelodeon, I think, like somewhere around there.
Well, no, I'm just saying in general.
Okay.
In general, since way back in the network television is different than cable television in that in cable television they can technically show anything they want.
I don't understand the difference between cable and network. Like what's
network is over broadcast airwaves, and it's different now because of the whole digital thing. But it basically the only ones who have to adhere to the FCC regulations were network television, like ABC, NBC, Fox, CBS. If you were over the airwaves network television, then you had to adhere to the FCC regulations as far as what you could and could not show. But if you're a cable channel, you can get away with anything, basically.
So is that like when the word shit started to be allowed to be said on television? Like
that was on cable first, mostly.
Okay.
That's how HBO is the way, even though it's pay, it's still they can technically do it and get away with it because of all that. You can basically get right up into the butt, up to probably pornography to the point where they're like, as long as you're not out there showing blatant porn on cable television, they're
like I was gonna say, like Xena. Like Xena was like so close to almost having moments like that, but they like hit it very well.
And then we had the rating system come in, and that changed things a little bit.
God,
networks could get away with a little bit more when the rating system came in.
I changed the title of the stream to film discussion.
Yeah, you might as well.
This had like 20 minutes of Karate Kid.
It started out as Karate Kid, but.
Man, no, we seriously got to do some film conversations more in the stream. See, this is the type of streams I like, because like we talk about what's hot a lot, which is cool, but it's like just talking about it in general. Like, I like this. Going back, we go to the future, go to the past, go to stories, all this. But let's close out soon. So, you guys have any last things you guys want to bring up about Karate Kid or film or whatever?
Oh. Well, I just have one question. I was wondering about you, Rookie Geoff. Geoff, have you ever bothered getting into chick flicks? Because I'm an expert on those. It's a great genre, but I don't know if it's your thing.
Well, I don't know what specifically counts for that.
Things like Twilight, things like Jane Austen adaptations. Oh, never mind. This is falling flat fast. Okay.
All right. No,
you could have him start with like things like Say Anything that are a little bit more.
A little more. Yeah, have a
16 Candles and
like having romance be the plot or something. Like,
well,
I think she's getting at chick flicks, kind of. I hate to use the term.
I use it.
I don't know what specifically that refers to.
Movies that are geared towards women audiences. Yeah. But there are some
now. So I don't know what that is now.
Well, they actually had it back in the day where they would make movies that would appeal more to women, like Steel Magnolias and Dirty Dancing.
If you were to ask me, Grease seems like a chick flick, but I don't know.
No, well, and the thing is that I think that's where it's declined some because they quit making chick flicks. That's what chicks like to go see in the theater, and you're right, Geoff, that they're trying to almost eliminate it. I'm like, oh my gosh, it is a great genre. We like them. We go and pay to see them. I mean, Mr. Darcy, the Pride and Prejudice, the 1995 one, and then the 2004. But I know this isn't your topic, but it's definitely a genre, and it's really sad that they've abandoned it because they don't want us to be women the way they want us to be women anymore.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any example for chick flick so I can understand what type of movie you're talking about.
Well, like the ones I said, 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink. But see, those are made by men, so they're actually decent films too. But no, that doesn't why they're decent, but they're made by men, so I don't know if you call them chick flicks exactly. But what's some good ones that are actually made by women though too? I'm trying to think.
Sense and Sensibility.
There you go, like that one in. Wasn't Steel Magnolias written based on a book by a woman too?
Yeah. I don't know. Just a ton.
I can't judge because I don't think I've seen that many because nothing's ringing a bell for me.
Well, what I want to say about it is basically the movies she's talking about are the ones that actually treated women like people and not idiots.
Yes.
Because the chick flicks that come out now, and that's why I hate using the terms, have women acting like complete idiots in them.
They weren't some type of tokens or stereotypes.
Yeah, exactly.
They were believable women, for lack of a better.
Well, and
Yes.
there were strong men in them as well.
And they weren't stupid always and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, maybe since we are throwing out things in the future, I'll force you to watch the 2004 Pride and Prejudice.
You
with
forced me to watch it.
Yeah. Well, I've always told men, if you really want to get a girl, watch Pride and Prejudice and take notes. That's all I've got to say.
Okay.
We all want our Mr. Darcy's. Okay, I'm scaring you all now.
I've heard good.
No, I get where you're going with this, and I think it's a good point because I don't watch them anymore, but a lot of the previews I've been seeing for what movies are geared towards women, and I'm not talking about Ghostbusters 2016 either. I'm talking about, a lot of the female-driven comedies that are out there. They look so dumb, and it looks like they're talking down to the audience and not actually having fun with them. And it's been a long time since I remember a real strong female-driven movie that was given a lot of praise for, or even if you go back to stuff like, Thelma and Louise, that isn't a comedy, but, we don't get those kind of movies anymore.
No.
I hardly know what you're talking about because I don't know. And nowadays, every movie that says they're geared toward women is like Melissa McCarthy slapstick.
And I'll tell you what, I don't like it. I don't like it one little bit. I'm not going to go see that trash.
Or you have great movies like A League of Their Own that was, I believe, directed by a woman, and not only that, it was everybody could enjoy it.
My gosh, yeah.
That one either. No, I have no idea.
That's one you should see just because it's just a great movie in general.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is a whole new area for you. I've opened up, what is it? Obi-Wan says, your first step into a wide world. Yeah.
A big new world or whatever. Yeah, I can't even remember now.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, Thundercats in the chat brings up a good point. He says, this is why cinema is failing, as we're losing certain genre films, chick flicks and comedy films like American Pie. Yeah, that makes sense. So I do remember stuff like American Pie and whatnot.
I don't know if I consider that a chick comic. American Pie is more like the Porky's.
He was saying genre films. And
yeah.
Okay. Comedy is what he was saying, like that type of comedy.
Yeah,
I would agree on that in a way, and that's why like I'm trying to think of ones that are like these. I'm like, God, I don't remember that many because there's only how many were there, and were they pre 2005? Like is
in that genre.
In any of those, in chick flick or comedy,
there's plenty.
Whereas, I guess American Pie style comedy, but
you have everything from Porky's to the you had like a lot of not straight to video, but straight to video quality ones like Private School and Screwballs and God, there's so many of them. Private Beach or something like that. Private Resort. That's the one I'm trying to think because I think Johnny Depp's in that one. There's some other one with Tom Cruise in it too, and I can't think of the title. But there was a buttload of them, especially in that era because they were cheap to make, and they would make a crap load of money.
Police Academy. Of Risky Business?
Well, no, there was another one he did besides that. But Risky Business was like a high-profile version of one of those.
Oh, gotcha.
I haven't heard of that, but I have seen every single Police Academy.
Revenge of the Nerds falls in that. The first Police Academy falls into that category.
Like the first three or something. Maybe the fourth was okay.
But Porky's spawned a ton of copies, and American Pie's roots are definitely in Porky's.
Yeah. Revenge of the Nerds is
in Revenge of the Nerds, I think was another one I was thinking of too. Yeah,
I haven't seen that either yet.
Really, that's one you should watch.
No, see, there's a lot of old comedies that I haven't seen either, and a lot of them people.
You want one that they would not be able to. Yeah, you want one they won't be able to make today, and that is completely on PC. Check out Revenge of the Nerds, the first one.
Oh gosh.
I think that was on.
Oh my God, is that a masterpiece and a half? I love Revenge of the Nerds.
I think I added that to my queue on Netflix when I first got it, but they removed it before I could watch it or something.
That's when you should move to the top of your list, to be honest with you, because that is not only that, it's the 35th anniversary of that one too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, actually, you got to get going real soon. I'm gonna start filming for Rookie's Quest Part 2, and I got to go to a creek to get my shots for that. So, and leave you guys guessing on what that could be. But
I
have to buy a muffin, and I won't tell you why. I won't tell you why.
When you put it that way.
Any closing things you guys want to say about either the Karate Kid or our conversations.
No, it's just fun having these conversations with you, whether we watch the movie or not. And I totally understand why you couldn't get through this one again, especially not seeing it when it came out in context, because I'm sure this is, of all the movies, that does not stand up through the test of time. And I have not even watched it myself in I don't know how long. And I was just trying to get it ready to queue up to watch it here today. And you're like, oh, we're not going to watch it. I'm like, oh, I had the movie going. And I'm like,
were you relieved? You were like, oh, thank God.
Really? I was kind of looking forward to, because I mean, it's one of those movies where I like to pick out the little things in it that I do like because of Pat Morita. And it is the last time we got to see him play Miyagi. And there is some great Miyagi moments in it. But I love the fact that you basically fixed the movie, Rookie, with one little fix.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have made the movie so much better and would have been a better send-off for Pat Morita, I think, than what we got.
That would have been a much, much, much better start for Hilary Swank. That matters.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they cast somebody different, but I think she could do that part just fine, too. She seemed she could do that.
Oh, yeah. Well, she's doing just fine now, so.
Yeah, true. But thank you, everybody in the chat, for joining us. This was the first non-watch party watch party. I changed the title so that when people try to do the rewatch, they don't go, "Oh, you guys watched it." No, we didn't. No.
Yeah, Geoff made that's a good title, non-watch party watch party. Yeah, it's really late where I am. As I get, I was going to need to sign off, but I actually was over where Star Wars was filmed in Ireland today. And I got a lot of information. It was really fun, but it hurt every time he said The Last Jedi. So
Last Jedi, good film. No.
Well, but my tour guide wasn't too thrilled with the movie, but so I'm exhausted. It's really late here.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Teresa.
Oh no, I was more than happy to. It was lovely. It was loads of fun. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Tomster, anything else?
No, anytime you want to have me, just let me know. If I'm not busy, I'll definitely, even no matter what the subject is usually, and I'll even probably sit through the remake if you really want me to.
Yeah, you seem to be very tolerant of.
It's one of those movies.
It's probably because of your. If you've actually had to watch Star Trek Discovery, I mean, your tolerance buildup is probably.
Oh yeah, that's probably one of the worst things I've ever had to sit through in my life.
So, like, going through that, I mean, are these really worse? Probably not. And it's like only an hour and a half, 2 hours, not like whole series. So yeah, that's good. And we can always do palate cleansers, but I'm gonna start doing Rambo watch parties.
That one I wouldn't mind being a part of. I'm a big Rambo fan. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just so you know, Geoff, that is the opposite of a chick flick movie. So if you think about it, think opposite.
Yeah, that's
okay. No, I get you. I was just trying to think of actual titles. I'm like, what movie title is a chick flick that I've seen?
Like we gave you tons. That you've seen.
I know. I'm trying to think myself of ones that I've seen because I probably have seen some, but I just can't think of any at all.
I'll sure put something out on Twitter.
Like when I was younger, I think my brother liked Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, and we watched that. And there's like a huge, I don't even remember that being a musical, but there's just a huge fight scene. And he's like, "I'm uncle," and he like faints. I'm like, "Yeah, was that a chick flick? I don't know, the musical, the same thing." No, I'm killing it now. No, I've seen it. Yeah, I'll have to look those up one of these days. But yeah, I'm just going to close out, guys. Have a good rest of your Friday.